Hey everyone, it's Donna, and I'm here to tell you a story about Aaron Stark, my ancestor. Any cousins out there watching? I want you to comment if I make mistakes, okay? I'm going to try my best to talk about Aaron. Okay. Aaron's father, his name was Aaron as well, was born around, I think I've got it written down here, 1565. And I believe he died in America around 1610. They were here before the Pilgrims. Aaron was born in 1608 and he died in 1685. Okay? Aaron was a different kind of guy, to say the least. They came in through the area of New London, Connecticut. And Aaron Jr. owned land around the Mystic River. I think he had a little over 100 acres, something like that, a couple hundred acres, I'm not sure. Beautiful area, beautiful, Mystic River, beautiful area. So he was raised here in a wild land. He had to learn to fight, and he did. He fought in the French and Indian War. Okay. He was a pretty ruthless guy from what I've read. He was arrested several times, but his captain would always come to get him out of jail because he was such a good fighter. If you've ever seen the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson, he kind of followed that path. He was kind of that type of guy. Maybe a little different with some twists and turns. And my ancestors that have read about Aaron probably are saying, yes, Donna, he had some other things that went on. But, he was here and had to grow up in an area where, times were different and he had to fight to stay alive, okay? He had several children, and I'm going to talk about his son, William, who was his firstborn son. And William Stark Jr., or Sr., was born in 1664. He died in 1730 and was married to a girl by the name of Elizabeth Halstead. Now, there's a story about William and what happened to his descendants and going down through the generations. And I'm just going to kind of just smooth through this because I don't want to go through a lot of dates right now. But William, I believe he became a minister, and I don't know it was because of his father's reputation or his true deep belief in God, but he started and chartered the first Baptist church in America, in Connecticut, around 1705, I believe. It was put on family land, and there is a cemetery in the back that was donated by the Stark family called the Reitman, Wrightman, Reitman Cemetery, that Aaron Sr. they think is buried there. There's no marker, but William and some of the other descendants are buried in the cemetery. So what happened? We're going to just talk about William. So William was a minister. What happened from this, he had children, of course. The descendant from him, William Jr., became a minister as well. His son, William Jr.'s son, Big Jonathan Jr., I believe he was a minister as well. Then it went down to Daniel Stark, and I've been told that Daniel was a minister as well. They moved into Virginia, some of the family did, and when I talk about Virginia, when they left, Virginia used to be all the way from Virginia that we know now, and the territory line reached all the way over to Kentucky. So actually, they had traveled over towards the Pennsylvania area. And there were several of the brothers at that time who had traveled over, and they were all ministers, Baptist ministers. They were stationed around Fort Pitt, which is now Pittsburgh, and I read that when they were there were only about 316 people there, and they were rangers. And there was a massacre that happened at Fort Pitt, but my relatives were not there. They were rangers, and they were off in a different direction. But when they arrived back, that fort was it was gone. The Indians, the British, somebody had attacked, I don't know, maybe both, and had killed everybody. It was a massacre. So, what happened was, they set up the boundary lines, and they've turned Pennsylvania into a state. When they did that, a lot of people who had settled on the land, and I don't know if this happened to my family or not, but they had claim jumpers just come in, buy their property, and now that they'd go home and their property was gone. I'm not sure if that's what happened, but here's what I do know. My family, the Stark family, linked up with the Hobbs family, and then they were hooked up with Daniel Boone when they were going into the Kentucky Territory. So they were ministers, and actually, the brothers all went towards Kentucky. Ooh, we got some wind chimes going over here. I got a huge wind chime now, and I love wind chimes. They remind me of my mother. So maybe she's here with us. Maybe she's here with me. So anyway, the boys, the minister boys, Starks, they went into Kentucky and they settled several different areas. And I'm actually descended from Joseph Stark and one of the other boys, Daniel. They had two children, and the boy and the girl, but they lived at a distance. They ended up marrying each other. But, you know, they didn't probably know each other that well, because Joseph Stark had 200 acres in Kentucky over here near Daniel Boone, and the other one was in a different area by the Ohio River. Actually he was near Bardstown, Kentucky, where, you know where Bardstown is, downtown Louisville? Down in that area, okay? So the families linked up. They were very, very religious. They had a church in Kentucky. Oh gosh, I can't remember it. Floyd's, I think, Fork Church. They were attacked by Indians all the time. It was brutal. It was savage. The Indians were trying to retain their land. So it was a constant battle. And some of the Starks decided, because they had heard Indiana was not as populated by the Indians, that it might be a little safer over there. So they moved across the river over towards Jeffersonville, Indiana, and into Scott County, Indiana, and they went into that district. So that's how I ended up in Indiana, okay? But the boys, and I'm going to talk about these boys, there was 3 or 4 of them. They left Fort Pitt. They came in and they were fighting in Little Lord Dunmore's war. He was a British commander who was trying to cut through Kentucky and go out west and claim it for the British. And the Starks were there, and they came in and they fought in that war to stop the British from taking that territory. They stayed, they had land there, they raised children there, they were fighting the Indians as much as they could. They did not believe in slavery or enslaving people. They did not do it. So they were doing a lot of this work themselves. And so they decided that they were going to move the church, one of the family members, that they were going to go into Indiana and start a church there, which they did on family land. I believe it was James that cut across, and he started a church, James Stark, on family land in Scott County, Indiana. It's called the Old Ox Fork Church, and it's in Henryville, I believe, Indiana, in Scott County. There's some stories behind that as well. If you'll look up the Pigeon Roost Massacre, many of the members that attended that church that were massacred by the Indians one night attended the Stark Church. So my descendant, we're going to talk about David Stark. I did major research trying to find him, Reverend David Stark. When he left Kentucky, he was one of the last ones that left. He came into Indiana. I believe he's buried at the Stark graveyard at the old Ox Fork Church. There is no marker. I found one for his wife, but none for him. And she's at a different cemetery. So I don't know if he was killed, and his father. I can't find his father, Daniel. They came into Indiana. I cannot find their markers. And I have looked, I have traveled to that area, I have called everyone and can't find it. So I don't know if they were killed by Indians, if they just died and there was no documentation. Who knows? So that's kind of just a short story of my mother's paternal family. My mother was the youngest of 11 children. And so I was raised kind of in the old ways, you know, teaching me what to do, how to do it in the old ways. And that's, you know, been a blessing to me because I know what to do if things go wrong. Anyway, we're going to stop for right now. That's just a short little video. I wanted to remember my ancestor today. There's a book on Amazon that anyone can purchase. It's called The Aaron Stark Family, 7 Generations of the Descendants of Aaron Stark in Groton, Connecticut. It was by a relative of mine, Charles Stark. He was a historian of the Stark Family Association. Okay? So, I'm going to show you the book. If you would ever like to read, and if you are an ancestor, this is definitely a read for you. We have members in my family that were from Jamestown. Some were Pilgrims, married to Pilgrims, descendants from the Pilgrims. Some were, see, Jamestown, the Pilgrims. Let's see, who else do we have in here? A little bit of everything. Amazing people, amazing people. So I'm going to stop, and please, if you are a descendant of Aaron Stark, if you have a little bit of history you'd like to share, if I screwed up something, share it with me. I want to know. I want to know. We're going to sign off for right now. I hope you enjoyed the video, and please subscribe. Bye-bye.